50 acres, then 1,000, then 3,500. The Springs Fire grew faster than fire crews could track it, and in less than 3 hours, it had consumed more land than the entire island of Manhattan. The sky above Moreno Valley turned brown before most people understood what was happening. Frank Disney looked out his window in the Moreno Valley Ranch neighborhood and thought his neighbors' houses were already on fire. They weren't. Not yet. The flames were still on the hillside, moving toward him through dry brush at the speed of the wind, 55 miles per hour through the San Gorgonio Pass. By 7 p.m. on April 3, 2026, the Springs Fire had burned 4,176 acres, 25% contained. Evacuation orders were active for 8 zones in Riverside County. 100 miles northwest, the Crown Fire near Acton had burned 345 more. 2 fires, 2 counties, 1 afternoon. The wind was the story everyone told. The wind was real. 2 days before the fires, engineers from the California Department of Water Resources drove to Phillips Station in the Sierra Nevada and pushed their measuring rods into the snowpack, statewide. The measurement was 18% of average. In the northern Sierra, it was 6%. It was the second worst snowpack on record. California had been declared drought-free in January. For the first time in 25 years, there was no drought anywhere in the state. The snowpack said otherwise. This is not the story of 2 wind-driven fires in Southern California. This is the story of a state that called itself saved and is burning in April. At 11:01 a.m., the Springs Fire was reported at roughly 50 acres on Gilman Springs Road. By 1:30 p.m., it had reached 1,500 acres, an area larger than Central Park, consumed in less than 2.5 hours. By 4:30 p.m., 3,500 acres. By 7 p.m., 4,176 acres. That rate of growth, roughly 84 acres per hour across an entire afternoon, is not normal April fire behavior. April is supposed to be the buffer between winter rain and summer heat, the window when vegetation still holds enough moisture to slow a fire down. Maurice Williams, who has lived near those hills for 20 years, had never seen one get this close. 260 firefighters were on the Springs Fire by late afternoon. 36 engines, 10 air tankers were pulled from multiple incidents across the state to a single location in Riverside County on a Friday in early April, resources typically reserved for late summer campaign fires. At 12:26 p.m., 85 minutes after the Springs Fire was reported, the Crown Fire ignited near Acton in northern Los Angeles County. A second evacuation zone, a second multi-agency response. CAL FIRE's drift smoke advisory covered Riverside, Jurupa Valley, Menifee, Wildomar, and Lake Elsinore by mid-afternoon. The California Wildfire Fund, the $21 billion state reserve created to cover utility liability, was activated for the first time during the Eaton Fire in January 2025. Jack Buckley, vice president at Capstone Energy Advisory, said out afterward, "I don't think the state or any stakeholder wants to get into a position where every 3 to 4 years you need to find another $10 billion for the fund. The current balance has not been publicly disclosed." The interval between the Eaton Fire and the Springs Fire was 14 months. But here's what the snowpack survey on April 1st actually showed, and the survey is a specific measurement with a number attached to a specific date. Carla Nemeth, director of the California Department of Water Resources, stood at Phillips Station and called it an alarming end to a winter. Alarming because snowpack is not stored water. Snowpack is stored fire suppression, the mechanism by which winter precipitation converts into soil moisture through June and July, keeping vegetation from drying to tinder before summer heat arrives. The rain that eliminated California's drought fell as rain, not snow. It soaked into soil and ran into reservoirs. It did not accumulate in the mountains. When March's record heat burned off what little snowpack remained, there was nothing left to release slowly across spring. The vegetation, above 3,000 feet, dried 2 months early. Sean Peterson, manager of the National Interagency Coordination Center, said in February that an extremely dry winter has increased the odds of severe fires in most western states. The April 1st survey confirmed it with a number. April 3rd confirmed it with smoke. The San Gorgonio Pass compresses and accelerates airflow from the high desert into the Los Angeles basin, a wind tunnel, not a landmark. Dave Capicilli stood in his backyard, wetting down his pergola with a garden hose. He said he had been rinsing off anything that was flammable, just wetting it down the best that they could to hopefully keep embers from making their way into places. That sentence describes the entire defensive posture of a neighborhood built at the wildland-urban interface against a wind-driven fire with no buffer. Moreno Valley expanded toward the Box Springs Mountains through the 1990s and the 2000s, pushing development directly into the zone where maintained lots meet dry chaparral. Gilman Springs Road is the edge. One side has vegetation carrying accumulated fuel loads from years without significant fire. The other side has wood-framed homes abutting open hillside. Riverside County is the 4th most populated county in California, home to roughly 2.4 million residents. Moreno Valley is the 12th largest city in the state by population. The wildland-urban interface here is not wilderness adjacent to civilization. It is civilization inside a fire corridor. The families evacuated from Altadena in January 2025 are still not home. The Eaton Fire burned 9,418 structures, houses reduced not to shells, but to slabs, bare concrete foundations with appliance frames standing in ash, street after street. 14 months later, rebuilding permits are moving slowly. That fire ignited in January, in a wet month, under the same Santa Ana conditions. Therefore, the Springs Fire is not a seasonal anomaly. It is the same mechanism, arriving earlier, against vegetation drier than anything January 2025 faced. The precedent that maps most directly onto April 2026 is the summer of 2021. That winter was dry. The statewide snowpack on April 1st, 2021 read 59% of average, low but not catastrophic. CAL FIRE issued early warnings. The Dixie Fire ignited in July near the Feather River Canyon and burned for 95 days. By October, it had consumed 963,000 acres, the largest single fire in California recorded history at the time. The town of Greenville in Plumas County was destroyed in an afternoon. Residents described a wall of orange crossing the ridgeline and consuming the Victorian buildings on Main Street within an hour. The structures reduced to chimneys and twisted metal in the ash. It was a fire that started as a manageable incident and became a geography. The 2021 snowpack was at 59%. Today's is at 18%. There is a particular kind of false security that a contained fire produces, the sense that because the system held this time, it will hold next time. The Springs Fire is 25% contained tonight. The containment lines held, for now, for this fire. But the vegetation profile that made today possible will not improve before summer. It will worsen day by day as temperatures climb and soil moisture that would normally arrive from mountain snowmelt fails to arrive. Sean Peterson warned of elevated fire risk across most western states. He said it in February. The April 1st survey gave it a number. April 3rd gave it an address, Gilman Springs Road, Moreno Valley, Riverside County, California. The fund that covers what comes next has an unknown balance. The season has 8 months left. California called it drought-free in January. The snowpack measure on April 1st read 18%. The fire started on April 3rd. If this story is worth telling, subscribe. We cover more of these every week.